the Democratic Republic of Congo, a nation that stands as a testament to nature's generosity, with its vast landscapes and rich biodiversity, a nation blessed with abundant natural resources. From its fertile lands to its mineral-rich soils, Congo is a treasure trove of wealth, a land rich in cultural heritage. The vibrant traditions and deep-rooted customs of its people paint a picture of a society with a profound sense of identity. Yet a country held captive by a brutal conflict where the echoes of gunfire and the cries of the innocent are a daily reality, shrouded in a deafening silence from the rest of the world. The once bustling villages now stand as ghost towns, bearing the scars of relentless violence. For decades, the Congolese people have endured unimaginable suffering. Their resilience is tested daily as they navigate through the ruins of their homeland. Violence, displacement, and exploitation have become their everyday reality. Families torn apart, children growing up in the shadow of war. The world watches silently as an entire nation is held hostage. The plight of the Congolese people often goes unnoticed, overshadowed by global politics. Why? Why does this suffering continue unabated? The conflict in Congo is not a natural disaster, it is a man-made catastrophe, fueled by greed, apathy, and the insatiable hunger for profit. It is a man-made catastrophe fueled by greed, apathy, and the insatiable hunger for profit. The riches of Congo have become a curse, attracting those who seek to exploit its resources at any cost. At the heart of this conflict lies the M23, a rebel group masquerading as a liberation force. Their promises of freedom are overshadowed by their actions, but their actions tell a different story. A story of brutality, exploitation, and a sinister agenda that threatens the very fabric of Congolese society. A story of brutality, exploitation, and a sinister agenda that threatens the very fabric of Congolese society. The dreams of a peaceful Congo are shattered by the relentless pursuit of power and control. The world must no longer turn a blind eye to the cries of the Congolese people. Their voices, though silenced by oppression, must be heard. It's time to expose the truth behind the conflict, to shine a light on the dark corners where injustice thrives, to hold the perpetrators accountable, to bring justice to those who have suffered for far too long, and to demand justice for Congo. The time for change is now. The world must stand in solidarity with the Congolese people and work towards a future where peace and prosperity are not just dreams, but a reality. The M23, or Movement of March 23, emerged from the ashes of a failed peace agreement in 2012. This group, which quickly gained notoriety, has roots deeply embedded in the complex socio-political landscape of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Comprised primarily of Congolese Tutsis, they claim to fight for the rights of their people, asserting that their community has long been marginalized and mistreated by the Congolese government. Their narrative is one of resistance and justice. Alleging marginalization and mistreatment by the Congolese government, they present themselves as defenders of their community's rights and freedoms. But are these claims merely a smokescreen? Could there be more sinister motives lurking beneath their proclaimed fight for justice? The M23's rapid rise to prominence, their sophisticated weaponry, and their strategic territorial gains all point to a powerful force behind their operations. Is there a darker motive driving their actions? The speed and efficiency with which they have mobilized raise questions about their true intentions. Their access to advanced weaponry and their ability to execute well-coordinated attacks suggest significant external support. All these factors combined indicate that the M23 is not merely a grassroots movement, but rather a group with substantial backing and a calculated agenda. Reports of foreign backing, particularly from neighboring Rwanda, have fueled suspicions that the M23 are merely pawns in a much larger game. This alleged support has added a layer of complexity to the conflict. These international suspicions suggest that the M23's actions are part of a broader geopolitical strategy, with foreign powers vying for influence in the region. A game played for control of Congo's vast mineral wealth. The M23's pronouncements of liberation ring hollow as they unleash terror upon innocent civilians. The M23's pronouncements of liberation ring hollow as they unleash terror upon innocent civilians. Their tactics mirror those of previous rebel groups. Utilizing violence, intimidation, and displacement to solidify their grip on power. The human cost of their actions is devastating. Utilizing violence, intimidation, and displacement to solidify their grip on power, they leave a trail of suffering and chaos in their wake. Their true agenda, hidden behind a veil of righteous rhetoric, is becoming increasingly clear: to exploit Congo's resources for their own gain, regardless of the human cost. The facade of liberation is but a thin veneer over their true intentions. Their true agenda, hidden behind a veil of righteous rhetoric, is becoming increasingly clear: to exploit Congo's resources for their own gain, regardless of the human cost. The facade of liberation is but a thin veneer over their true intentions. The M23 claims to champion the cause of the Congolese Tutsi people, presenting themselves as protectors and defenders of a marginalized community. However, their actions paint a drastically different picture, one that is marred by violence and destruction. Their reign is characterized by widespread human rights abuses, leaving a trail of suffering and despair in their wake. These abuses include forced recruitment of child soldiers, rampant sexual violence, and the systematic looting of Congo's natural resources, which devastates local communities. The M23's focus on capturing mineral-rich areas exposes their true motivations, revealing a greed-driven agenda. They have established a stranglehold on the trade of gold, coltan, and tin minerals essential for the production of electronics used worldwide, from smartphones to laptops. This illicit trade generates millions of dollars, funding their war machinery and further enriching their foreign backers, who have a vested interest in the conflict. The M23's claims of fighting for the marginalized ring hollow as they themselves become the oppressors, instilling fear and uncertainty in the hearts of the people. They have created a climate of fear and instability, displacing millions of people and plunging entire communities into chaos, with refugee camps swelling beyond capacity. Their actions are not those of liberators but of exploiters who prioritize personal gain over the well-being of the Congolese people, leaving a legacy of exploitation and suffering in their wake. The crisis in Congo is not a secret. The evidence of atrocities is overwhelming, yet the international community remains largely silent. Why? This deafening silence is a shameful indictment of our collective conscience. Several factors contribute to this global apathy. The sheer complexity of the conflict, with its intricate web of actors and agendas, often discourages deeper engagement. The lack of readily available and consistent media coverage further perpetuates ignorance and indifference. However, the most unsettling reason might be the uncomfortable truth that many powerful nations and corporations benefit from the chaos in Congo. The global demand for cheap electronics fuels the trade in conflict minerals, directly financing the armed groups responsible for unimaginable suffering. Turning a blind eye to the source of these minerals allows for this cycle of violence and exploitation to continue unabated. The silence is not just deafening, it's complicit. The lush green hills and fertile lands of Congo conceal a dark secret conflict minerals. These minerals, essential for our modern electronics, have become a curse for the Congolese people. They are the blood diamonds of the 21st century, fueling a brutal conflict and lining the pockets of warlords and corrupt officials. The global demand for coltan, tin, tungsten, and gold, used in smartphones, laptops, and other electronic devices, has turned Congo into a battleground. Armed groups, including the M23, vie for control of these valuable resources, using forced labor and violence to maintain their grip on the trade. These conflict minerals are smuggled across borders, often with the complicity of corrupt officials, and enter the global supply chains. They end up in our electronic devices, their bloody origins masked by layers of intermediaries and a lack of transparency in the supply chain. The M23, while brutal and opportunistic, are merely pawns in a much larger game. Regional and international actors driven by geopolitical interests and economic greed are the true puppeteers behind Congo's conflict. Rwanda, in particular, has been heavily implicated in supporting the M23. UN reports and independent investigations have revealed compelling evidence of Rwandan military involvement, including the provision of troops, weapons, and logistical support. Uganda, too, has been accused of aiding the M23, though it vehemently denies these allegations. These foreign powers exploit the M23 to further their own agendas in the region. Rwanda, seeking to expand its influence and access to Congo's mineral wealth, uses the M23 as a proxy force to destabilize the Congolese government. This interference perpetuates the cycle of violence and instability, hindering Congo's development and condemning its people to further suffering. The true cost of the conflict in Congo is measured not in dollars, but in human lives shattered and a generation robbed of its future. Behind the statistics and headlines are real people, families torn apart, and communities forever scarred by the horrors they have endured. Over 6 million people have internally displaced, forced to flee their homes and seek refuge in overcrowded camps where disease and hunger are rampant. Sexual violence, used as a weapon of war, has reached epidemic proportions, leaving countless women and girls physically and emotionally scarred. The conflict has decimated Congo's infrastructure, crippled its economy, and reversed years of development progress. Children are deprived of education, healthcare systems are overwhelmed, and basic services are non-existent in many areas. The human cost of this conflict is immeasurable, a stark reminder of the consequences of global indifference. Despite their relentless violence and suffering, the spirit of the Congolese people remains unbroken. Amidst the darkness, glimmers of hope emerge from the extraordinary resilience and courage of ordinary individuals. Local activists, human rights defenders, and community leaders risk their lives every day to document atrocities, provide aid to those in need, and demand justice for their people. They are the unsung heroes of Congo's crisis, their courage a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. These individuals and organizations, often working with limited resources and facing constant threats, are a beacon of hope in the fight for a better future for Congo. They are proof that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can prevail. The crisis in Congo is a stain on the conscience of humanity. We can no longer afford to be bystanders to this tragedy. It's time to break the silence, to demand accountability, and to stand in solidarity with the Congolese people. We must pressure our governments to implement tougher sanctions on those who fuel the conflict, including individuals, companies, and nations complicit in the illegal trade of conflict minerals. We must demand greater transparency and ethical sourcing practices from the electronics industry, ensuring that the devices we use are not contributing to the suffering of others. Most importantly, we must amplify the voices of the Congolese people, share their stories, and advocate for their right to peace, justice, and a brighter future. The time for inaction is over. Let's stand together and be the generation that breaks the silence and helps Congo heal.